Welcome back to The Blindsiders. I am joined by Brian and Dylan here, and we're here to talk about episode 11 of Survivor 42, final 7 episode, mirroring the final 7 episode of last season, where that episode we also had this do or die twist, which is one of the kind of cornerstones of the episode. But it was a lot of chaos that happened in this episode. Outside of that, this was like the two most chaotic episodes of Survivor 41 put into one.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was a good episode. I hate off the rip. Hate this twist. Hate it so much. One of the worst twists ever. There's nothing redeemable about it. Jeff, yes, get this the fuck out of here. But it was a good episode. Other than that, despite the twist, it was good.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the whole like 2 seasons in a row the player who got do or died did the Monty Hall problem wrong and got rewarded for it. Like we don't have to get into that at all. But I do want to point out that when the entire cast is cheering on the twist and saying like this is why Survivor is awesome, that doesn't really give me a lot of hope that this is, a twist is going to be going away. So.
No.
Look forward to Do or Die on Survivor 43 is what I'll have to say.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it in the Survivor format that they're in currently because it's like my hope is that the rumors are true. Also, hello everyone, I'm back. And it's a little lighter in here and it's a mess, so I apologize. My hope is that they're kind of just getting out all these weird things they probably always wanted to do while we're in these shortened seasons, because I guess it does make sense, but although they're not sending home 2 people, so actually this whole argument's kind of moot because I would say they're going to try to get rid of people faster. I don't hate it. Kind of to what Ben said, though, it seems like it's been played wrong twice and still been successful. Very similar to the roll of the dice, where every time someone's done it, it's been the same outcome. So it would be nice to see one outcome to kind of really gauge what it's going to be like, but overall, I don't mind it, but I agree. I wish they would do away with it. But it did add a bit of an interesting twist here in terms of who would sit out and who didn't in the challenge. And I was a little surprised by the results of that, too. So I think it does add a little... there's some good to a lot of bad with it. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's been fine from a results-oriented perspective so far, simply because both times the player won the game. I think that this is a considerably worse episode if, Lindsay loses the game. And probably the rest of the season kind of gets a bit thrown off because of it in, a really kind of disappointing way. Because I thought that, the other stuff that was happening from a strategy perspective in the episode and that ended up happening in the tribal council was really cool and fun and exciting. And it almost got completely, thrown out the window. And all of the stuff that Lindsay and Omar did almost didn't matter if not for her winning the game. Mm-hmm. So that would be my argument is that it's a bad twist that's they've luckily dodged the worst case scenario for 2 seasons in a row from no help from the players because the players, as we said, did the wrong play mathematically. So I don't know. I think it's a time bomb waiting to explode with a bad outcome.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm almost certain we said it last year, but to reiterate, when a twist, the best outcome is that it doesn't affect the game at all, not a good twist. Real bad, in fact.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the this is what I talked about. Me and Brian on the Big Brother podcast have said similar thing about bad Big Brother twists, and then on Survivor, similarly, the 2 outcomes for Do or Die are nothing happens or a bad outcome happens that probably makes the product of the show worse. So when the best case scenario is that nothing changes, I think it's just intrinsically a bad twist, and that's been the case.
Yeah.
And the best case happening tonight was basically nothing changing. Jonathan probably wins that challenge regardless, and Lindsay is not going to go home anyways, whether she's immune or not. So they basically played the game for fake tension when they could have had actual, real, exciting tension from the tribal council from the start, based off of how it played out. So.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, obviously, later in the show, we're gonna have to talk about the other badly designed twist that just so happens to have worked out 2 times in a row because of the way that the players have misplayed it.
About to say that whole thing is solely on the players, but like
sure,
yes.
1,000,000%, with the knowledge of power twist, of course, which is them introducing a completely overpowered twist that has just been horrifically misplayed 2 seasons in a row, when it could have been super overpowered. But I guess before we get to that, we start out the episode, and the most important thing we see here is Mike is starting to try to grab some power from now the power vacuum that's been left with High's elimination. And Omar is not super keen on allowing Mike to try to grab that power, presumably wanting it for himself.
Yeah, I mean, Mike had one really great confessional, very kind of mean, but I guess he does think that High was talking shit about him. Yeah, but then he also had just a straight up mean confessional about Romeo. So, who's to say? I love Mike. I think he's a great Survivor character. It was very funny though to see him kind of dictating what he wanted to happen, and then we get like cut back to Omar being like, "It's nice that Mike wants that to happen. I will be deciding what actually happens, but it's good that Mike has all this gumption."
He seems like he had a lot more hatred for High than I had thought. He was like, and the whole group. I mean, it was the right vote. It was a great vote getting out High. Obviously, I wasn't here last week to discuss it, but it was the right vote. It's a great move. Yeah, and it's props back to Omar for being the best player left in the season. Is that he just planted the seed, and it really it may overall just completely affect Mike's game, because obviously when we get down to final tribal, if Mike is there, I assume that's going to be something that High is going to point out and bring up. It's like, hey, dude, what the hell happened? Even though it was the right move. It's like not to just jump away from Mike, but props back to Omar, best player left in the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so impressive. I mean, this whole episode, it just showed like all the strategy of like pretty much every player just runs through him. So he's the one deciding like which way to go, no matter what people's plans are. And nobody realizes it. Everybody loves him and wants to work with him. So, I mean, maybe this is the first time where he has to like straight up stab someone who was pretty loyal to him in the back, and she did, kind of call him out on the way outside of tribal council. But does him warning Mike offset that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably will. And we talked about last week as well, me and Brian, how like Omar is basically playing the game that High thought he was, and that everybody else thought High was playing, because High was like kind of presenting himself as playing that game, whereas Omar is just doing it kind of quietly behind the scenes. And that's just I think that kind of shows how you really should play Survivor these days. Especially in this episode, they talk about like, everybody, all the big threats are going to start taking each other out, right? And I think Omar is kind of dodging that more than he should, because he's kind of taken this kind of backseat puppet master role as opposed to somebody who's out in front leading. And yeah, when we come out of this episode with Drea gone, Lindsay is still pointing at Jonathan. Mike is now basically indebted to him. Omar has Mike's idol in his pocket, and I mean, people like this is like 3 weeks in a row where we see a week preview where Marianne is talking about wanting to like do some kind of bottom feeder uprising, but it hasn't happened yet, and it's probably too little too late at this point. So
yeah, I guessed it on Survivor New York, shout out Survivor New York, podcast once, and I said the ideal way to play Survivor is to be the person calling the shots without anyone realizing you're calling the shots. I got pushback from one of the other guests. We'll leave them nameless, but I think that this is showing that that is the optimal strategy. Maybe Omar loses. Maybe nobody gives him any credit, but I don't get the feeling that's what's going to happen. But this is why, it's such a good position to be the person in charge of everything, but no one knows that you're in charge of everything until it's too late. You know?
Yeah. I think until it's too late is the key word there, right? Mm-hmm. And you can kind of see this in Big Brother too. I'm not going to spoil Big Brother Canada 10, mm-hmm. but the ultimate winner of Big Brother Canada 10 had a very similar archetype and role to what Omar has done, whereas like a lot of behind the scenes puppet master manipulation, and eventually people caught on and figured it out. But by the time people caught on and figured it out, it was too late. And so it was just in time to get credit for the moves in the jury segment, but not too soon where people had the opportunity to take them out. So I think that's exactly what Omar is doing now. And I think now is kind of the turning point where people are going to be like, oh, Omar is actually going to win the game, but now it's too late to give anything.
Yeah. It's also like, as a super fan, literally like what you dream of. You're like, I'm going to go out on Survivor and I'm going to be like the puppet master. But usually that doesn't work. But it's Omar's pulling it off, and I love it. If he wins, he's going to be up there for me personally as one of the better winners.
I think comparatively too, if you're comparing to last season, it's similar to like I thought High was a similar play to Shan. I think he played a better version of Shan's game, where Omar is a better version of Ricard, and I think that is going to get him over the hump. Because Ricard had the issues where maybe he piggybacked on Shan too long, even though he eventually was the driving force to get her out. But I think he kind of made people skeptical of him early on, where, like we said, Omar, it really seems like nobody just suspects Omar is doing all this, even though it's happening to everyone. Particularly, obviously, with Mike, too. So, yeah, props to him. I wouldn't say he's like my like personal like gut feeling choice to want to win, but he is like my survivor purification. I want him to win because he's the best player left in the game. So let's see though, because 2 weeks ago we said that High was in the best possible position, and I would have said after last week Dre was in the best possible position. So it's this season in this cast. I mean, who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if Omar went home next week.
Well, it's very possible.
Depends if he gives his Mike's idol back or not. Because if he doesn't, he could just play.
I really wonder if he will. Like, not to like some of the credits may be skeptical of that, but who knows?
I don't want to like super derail the flow of the chronological episode, but I do want to address this final 6 being a potential clusterfuck, because now we have 3 idols, 6 people, and an immunity. So I guess we can't have, what happened to Suri happen, but like it's still not an ideal situation for me as a fan to have this many advantages this late into the game.
So can we recap who has what? So Mike has an idol, Marianne has an idol, Mike or Omar have an idol. We'll say Mike. Yeah. Marianne has an idol. Lindsay has an idol. Now
the amulet is now an idol.
Is there any other advantage out there?
Marianne has an extra vote still.
I
think that's it though.
Yeah.
And I think I saw people online saying that the amulet idol that Lindsay has is only good up until the final 6.
So she's playing it 100%.
Yes, that's my understanding. Obviously, don't quote me. I haven't read the fine text on the amulet myself, but that's what people have said. Is that the fine text on the amulets have said that the amulet power has to be played by the final 6. So
I presumably like that. That's good.
Right. It prevents all 3 idols from making it to the final 5, where we get an advantage getting.
Yeah.
But it doesn't prevent 3 idols being played immunity and then like a 3-3 tie happening between the other 2 that doesn't get broken, and then and then what? I don't know.
Then what happens?
Presumably the two of them go to a fire making challenge, or they draw rocks. Only the two of them. I don't know.
They
It's
fight for
unclear.
it.
They fight for it. Yeah. A la Wu.
Yep.
Yeah. But
That don't
I
love
don't
that.
think
This is why like I don't know if that idol that Marianne found was a merge idol or it just came into existence because idols were played at the previous tribal council. Either way, I didn't love another idol going back in that late into the game with someone else having an idol already still alive. You know, like if all three idols had been played, sure, throw another idol out there, but like this is where it gets messy, where all these advantages can really screw something up.
Well, I think that's where also they claim that this is like obviously like the faster, like the scarier, harder version of Survivor, but like it's like idols galore. There's
It's
so
so
many
many.
idols.
Yeah.
So many idols.
Yeah, so we'll see. I hope that like what you laid out, Ben, where the ties and then you have to like change the rules on the fly to make like a fire making challenge doesn't happen. Just so we can avoid that.
I do think Marianne's extra vote also has to be played at the final 6. So I think at the very least there should be 7 votes, assuming
Okay,
that she
that's
plays
good.
it no matter what. So I don't think that that's really possible or likely to happen at all. But it could still be a very messy situation where there's only like 2 or 3 people who realistically can get voted out, which is not the best.
No.
So. But yeah, I guess other than that, is anything you guys want to cover before we get to the challenge?
Trying to think. I mean, the editing and everything was very funny with Mike's kind of diatribe about how useless Romeo is and all he does is take rice and put it in his mouth. It is mean, but it was also funny.
And it cut to him like
Yeah.
a mouse at like the rice thing, just like peeling away the rice.
Uh,
And he goes, I don't know how he goes, screw them, I don't care. That
that was funny that they at least gave him a little like rebuttal there.
Once again, I just tweeted it. This cast is just like even Romeo, who I think would be the only unsatisfying winner for in my point of view, unless he starts making some really huge changes. This cast is just like it's just so good. Like it's everyone that's gone, I don't want to go, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, I'm glad they're gone. It's just it's just purely just there's not necessarily like great players, but there's players that are trying to play the game, and like in a respectful way too. As we saw at the end of this, and the end of last tribal, it's just a great cast. It's probably in my top 10, or top 5 even. Maybe.
It's really good. Yeah, I saw you tweeted that. I liked it. I think it's a great cast as well. And then the only other thing was Jonathan having a very interesting, thing where he's like, I'm trying not to be that giant guy who, like James in Heroes versus Villains, who got in trouble for eating more bananas than everyone and led to a giant blowout. He's very aware that like big guys on Survivor have gotten in trouble in the past for eating more than their fair share of whatever that means of the food available. And while he's aware of that, it is also like, okay, but you have to also be aware of how you're speaking to people and how you're coming off, because you're just trading people being mad at you for eating more for people being mad at you for being a dick. So what do you like? Is a zero-sum game, Yeah,
if you're gonna lose social points because of your attitude, because you're hangry, then you might as well lose the social points and still be full and able to compete more effectively and like live better.
Yep.
So.
Honestly, I'm very high on Team Jonathan, but I have to acknowledge that the past few weeks have not been great for his social standing. By no
It's
means.
definitely showing us if he gets to the final 3 why he's not going to win in the last few weeks. Whereas before it was like Jonathan, Greek god, everyone loves him. But it also, the sped up season, the less food is going to, I think, really show in this immunity challenge, because this immunity challenge in the past has gone on 4 hours, and I think it lasted 20 minutes in this episode.
Not even. I think it was like 12 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. I guess the other thing to point out is coming into this challenge, Lindsay was still on the get Jonathan out kick, right? That she was on last week that failed because Omar said no, basically. And it's seemingly, based off the preview, also going to continue into the final six, where Lindsay wants Jonathan out badly, and that's going to paint her strategy for how she handles this do or die twist. Yeah, so we get to the challenge. Jeff explains the twist. We all know how it works. We explained it last week. We already explained it last season. Everyone understands, right?
Listen, if you don't understand at this point, Christian from David vs. Goliath did a Twitch stream where he programmed like the odds. So go watch that if you're still confused as to how the math works on
the
this.
Monty Hall part of it, yes.
Yeah, for the Monty Hall part of the twist. Worst thing to ever happen is that 2 times in a row, the person did it wrong. Like no one's gonna believe us anymore when we say that you should always switch.
Yeah, no, I saw somebody on Reddit being like, I was so happy that, High was proven wrong when he said that you should always switch.
Yeah.
Because, he's so smug about it and he was wrong. It's like, no, he's still right. Again,
last season when we did this episode, I think I called it like a big win for the outcome, people or something. Result, or yeah, that's what I called it. Yeah. And here we are again.
Yeah, it's a big win for the people who, when given the option to put 1 bullet in a gun for Russian roulette and 5, will decide to put 5 in and hit the 1 and 6 and say they're geniuses.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, but yeah, this challenge always looks incredibly painful. I wouldn't have minded sitting out of it in general, let alone to avoid a twist like this.
Yeah, no, it's correct, right? Can we all agree it's just correct to sit out?
Yes.
Okay. Lindsay should have. I mean, it's funny because the scene we had before was everyone saying we have to do everything possible to not let Jonathan win the next immunity challenge, which is obviously before they do the twist. Somebody like Romeo, which kind of furthers why I'm not a fan of his gameplay at all, is that maybe he's getting a different gist than I am, that he's kind of climbing back up, but I at least want to see like some fight out of Romeo, because like we're also getting on now of him being like on the wrong side of a vote like 4 weeks in a row now, and people are just like okay with it. So I would like to just see like playing wise a little fight out of Romeo, but obviously it paid off. So it's, but what would happen though? So Jonathan does that, and then there's no twist. They just do the regular vote.
Listen, there's no way that Survivor Productions thought that through yet, Dylan.
I mean, in a perfect world, right? If say Lindsay also didn't compete, which is, she says throughout the rest of the episode that it was probably correct for her to have not competed, and I agree. Even though a lot of people were saying no, don't have regrets. It's like, yeah, no, she shouldn't have competed for sure. I think that it's just Jonathan wins immunity by default, and they don't do the twist, which would have been a-okay outcome for me.
Yeah. Lindsay, hey, you technically have a 66% chance of being safe now, if you think about it. You wouldn't have, because you didn't do the game correctly, but...
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? If they ever do this twist in the future, I think it's just correct for if you know 100% that you're the target, you should compete. So that would be like the Jonathan spot, right? And everybody else should sit out, and it should be like, okay, we'll just let this person get immunity, right? And we'll figure out a different plan, because there's no way that letting this twist play out is correct.
Right. Yeah, so, it didn't last very long. I did think Lindsay was going to win, because Jonathan's enormous, and it was like this much space to put his feet on. But no, Jonathan just can't lose things, I guess. And he won.
He did come off so quick after she did, though, that I think that he was basically like right there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think that he almost by coincidence was like already going off and saw her start to drop, and then that's when he did. So I think it was much closer than just winning and losing. I think it was like seconds. And I think Lindsay might have had it.
Yeah, he did also lose a comparable challenge to Lindsay last week.
True. Yeah. No, I mean this is a bad pull for him to have a challenge like this but he still won. So what do I know?
Typically, the challenges at the end here are either puzzles or finesse.
Yeah, I guess they don't do puzzles post merge anymore. It's all just balancing and hanging on to stuff
Endurance,
now,
yeah.
which is lame, in my opinion.
I love endurance competitions or challenges in general, but doing them every time is just going to like allow people like Jonathan and Lindsay to dominate all of these challenges
Mhm.
instead of having a diverse pool of immunity winners. And the way that they do the challenges nowadays for the endurance kind of guarantees them to be over quickly because I think they've learned from the history of the show that it's not really fun for anybody if these challenges go on for hours and hours. But from an audience perspective, it's kind of fun.
Yeah,
But not from a production perspective or a cast perspective or a Jeff standing out there trying to come up with stupid quips for 3 hours perspective. So
no, I agree. They've literally like every time we see a challenge that they've previously done, it's always like, and here's a new element to make it go even faster. And it's usually like you have no space to stand.
Mhm.
You know, like when they first did when it rains it pours, which is the hold your arm up bucket challenge in Africa. It was simple, just hold your arm up and just do it. And now it's like stand on a perch and you'll wobble around on it, and yeah.
Although you do get moments like what's his name in Blood versus Water. I'm like drawing a blank on his name. The son of I'm like horrible with names right now.
That's all
Where
right.
he asked Jeff about his 2.5
Oh
minute
yeah,
naked
Wes. Yeah,
yeah.
Wes,
Yeah.
yeah, that was this challenge. Yeah, um, that was funny, and he told us how he ate 50 or 100 chicken nuggets or something.
Mhm. And you
And,
also had them spitting and Natalie spitting on herself.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
that was bad.
So it does allow for comedic moments like that of you just having to like roll the tape for fucking
Yeah,
3 hours.
and also she redeemed herself by negotiating Jeff out of house and home, where she got like chicken wings, burgers, like a giant soda. Like I love Natalie, she's so great.
One of my, if not my favorite player, one of my top three.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yep. But yeah, that's how it plays out. Jonathan wins his was it second or third individual immunity. I think it's third, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think he won at. Well, no, because he only won at 10. I think it's only a second, right?
Supposed to
Because
have-
Tori won at 12
Yeah.
and 11. Jonathan won at 10
Yeah.
alongside High, which was 10 and 9. And then Lindsay won at 8, and now Jonathan.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
So I think Jonathan won at a reward challenge, maybe. What it was. But
I can't remember.
yeah, I don't really care about reward wins. To be fair.
It feels like he's dominated the season.
Yes, he's
in
coming
terms of
second a lot.
challenges.
He's
Yeah.
coming second a lot, so I feel like he's done better than he has. And that again, mucks up Lindsay's plans to not only to vote out Jonathan, but also mucks up her plans to potentially stay in the game in a situation where she was otherwise completely safe.
Not great.
Yeah. Yep. And then we shift to Mike's plan here, which is to blindside Drea, which he pitches to basically everybody except for Drea.
Which I mean, sure. Okay. So last week we talked about it, Ben. Like, I felt like Drea was really the only person standing in Omar's way to winning, but I had the caveat that she needs to start making aggressive moves in order to win, and she did not do that this week. She was very like ready to just like, oh yeah, we'll just go with this 5, and then when it started to fall around her, and this is not necessarily take like shade on her, she had a get out of jail free card, and she just fumbled the ball at the 1 yard line by telling Omar she did not need to do that. She could have been like, okay, well, even if Mike's coming for me, whatever, I'll just steal his idol at tribal council. And is like, that's it. She went out swinging with her advantages and her extra vote, but she didn't have to player extra vote she could have gotten through this round if she just like kept it to herself, which is it's too bad.
It does go back to the flaw that we've been pointing out this entire season, that people just can't keep their mouths shut. Props Marianne for not telling anybody yet that she hasn't.
I know.
So, it's just particularly with that advantage, it just there's like no benefit to telling anybody else. I guess like maybe unless there's somebody that you absolutely trust, which I did not think that Omar and Drea would absolutely trust each other. And the only reason you would do that is not to upset them. It's just it rightfully got her voted off. Rightfully, she was the logical. She shouldn't have voted off because she was way too powerful, and rightfully so for that fumble. Like I had my own thoughts about Leanna last season, but like that was one of the I thought Leanna's was much worse because Leanna's was basically just like going around just telling everybody. Where here she at least told them. Well, she did say she was going to go tell like Lindsay or Marianne. Somebody. She said she was going to go tell somebody else too. So for her to call out Omar, unless like she didn't, unless she was testing Omar, for her to then tell Omar that he was the only one she told, I didn't think that was accurate unless she just ended up not following through with that. But she got what she deserved for just people, when people just have to blab about their advantages and idols. I mean, this is what happens. You just gotta keep it close to the chest. There's literally no benefit to telling anybody.
Yeah, I mean, the twist is called knowledge is power, right? Like, the implication is having knowledge gives you power. Why would you give it away? It's just like, come on. But hey, props to Lindsay for figuring out the way around it immediately. As soon as Omar told her, she's being like, oh, we'll just take Mike's idol. We'll be fine.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw a lot of people saying, like, she could have just said she had an idol nullifier, which is like, you don't even need to say that.
You don't need to say anything.
All you have to do is say, we're going to try and blindside Mike here and vote him out with an idol in his pocket. And if he plays it, it's just going to bounce back on me. So I'll take that risk. Right? Yeah. I'll assume that risk as Drea here. And, you know, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then, you know, I was going to win.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So let's just try to get 4 votes on Mike here. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And then when you're at Tribal Council, you steal Mike's idol. And now you already have the votes in place to vote out Mike. People aren't going to flip it on you because now you have an idol, right? And it would be crazy to try to do that
you're
live
playing.
on Council.
Yeah.
Well, you don't even have to play it, right? Because you can take it, and if you think you have the votes, you can basically use it as like a 2-week safety, because you can say, I have Mike's idol now. You can say that you're going to play it just in case and not play it, right? You can play it now at 6. If Lindsay goes out, you now have potentially have the
amulet.
Amulet. Like, you also still have an extra vote, which she pointlessly played at this Tribal Council when it was a 7-vote situation, and there's no real difference between 8 and 7. So
I think that was I think that was a desperation by her.
That might have been to try to force a tie, because it was 5-3, maybe a 4-4. But if it's a 4-4, she's part of the tie. She can't revote, so it doesn't matter.
And even if she could revote, she couldn't extra vote again.
You can.
Oh, she can. You're right. Yes,
we
did.
But her being a part of the vote, she wouldn't have been able to vote.
She would have been able to. Oh.
So she wouldn't. The extra vote would have been.
Oh man.
I was about to say, not to repeat last season, but are we sure that she didn't have to play it at that tribal? Are we positive?
I think it's good through Final 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe you, and I don't want to follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think because, well, I mean, we'll get to it, but Marianne's extra vote add some intrigue to next week. Yeah.
I think we're finally going to get a big move that, because I was debating this with my brother. I think, like I said earlier, Romeo would be the only player left that I personally wouldn't be satisfied with if they won. He said also Marianne he wouldn't be satisfied with. I think that she does have a big move to be made to persuade the council about that. And it seems like we're going to get it next week. So I think next week we're either going to see the beginning of Marianne's winter story, or we're going to see the beginning of Marianne's end. Yeah. Based on the trailer, and I guess like she needs to do it because we're running out of time too.
No, the Final 6 is the last chance Marianne has to get any power for herself.
Yeah.
And she might not even be able to based on how loyalties lie, but Well, I guess we'll see.
I guess like 'cause Jonathan also needs to make a big move to prove his gameplay strategy because to everybody else, it's he's kind of like strategy wise like a joke to them, obviously, and his social is kind of really falling apart. But he does have the people that will respect him for being a strong player. He does have that, and I think that he'll probably he'll potentially get votes for that, but who knows? Um, so next week should seemingly be more fireworks than this week because there's a lot that still needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that Marianne's now in the same position that Drea was in last week, where she's basically running out of runway, and it's possible like the chances like it could play out the exact same way that it played out with Drea, where Marianne's running out of runway, she doesn't make a move fast enough, and she ends up going at 6. But I do think that the narrow path that she does have is her Romeo, Jonathan. If Jonathan gets wind that Lindsay is trying to target him or push him as a target at the final 6, they can do 1, 2, 3 plus the extra vote and vote out somebody like Omar. And now that 3 is in a solid position. Mike and Lindsay are kind of separated because the person tying them together as glue was Omar, and Marianne still has an idol that she can play at the final 5. So that's I think the path for Marianne to get to a win. Whether she's able to actually thread that needle is like very much up in the air.
I think what makes it interesting too, and a few weeks ago I brought up about how like it seems like nobody's like truly aligned in this season. It really feels like we're going in now with six all different strategies, like zero alignment. Like I think like potentially Mike and Omar, but even then it seems like Mike's maybe going to wake up a little bit. I really have no idea who's going to side with who. That's the thing that I can really see Romeo. I don't think I can see Romeo squeaking into final 3, but I think I can see him getting to being like the Heather point of last season, of him maybe being final 4 and him being like the final slaughter going into final 3. Because I can really see that, because like if you look at Romeo, there's no chance that he can win, in my opinion. There's no chance unless he does something like steals Marianne's idol and just destroys Mike's or something like that. Unless he just goes batshit crazy, there's no chance he can win. So like it's really a 5-man race, and Lindsay clearly does not like Jonathan. So that's something that is against Jonathan there. I think Lindsay, Omar, Marianne could potentially maybe make a final 3 pact of like keeping the same tribe together, excluding Jonathan, because you can't take Jonathan to final 4, because if he wins, you're fucked. Not to like get ahead of ourselves. If we're guessing, that's my guess of what's going to happen. That's our final 3 is Omar, Lindsay, and Marianne. How we get there, I have no idea. But we'll see.
I don't necessarily think I agree with that. I think that Jonathan in the final 3 probably just loses, and so I think that if anything, Lindsay is a little bit kind of like tunnel visioned on Jonathan in a way that's probably going to lose her the game, because I don't think that there's really any reason for her to want to take out Jonathan. Me and Brian talked about this last week, that she was like failing at doing something that I think is bad for her game. I think her ideal final 3 is her Jonathan Romeo, probably. I think that Lindsay probably has a pretty good chance of winning that final 3.
I think you take him out because, hypothetically, because he's such a beast. I think you would want to take him out before 4, because if he wins the final challenge, you kind of lose your ability to kind of choose who can get in. Because if he wins the final immunity challenge, then you're down to 2, and then anything could happen. So that's why I agree. I don't think in that situation he would beat like an Omar or a Lindsay or anything like that. But I do think that he's potentially going to be robbing a spot of someone that could win, which is why you would want to get rid of him before that final challenge.
I disagree. I think that he probably fills a similar role to Xander last season.
Could be true.
I think Lindsay could be the Erica to his Xander in that kind of a scenario.
When you do that comparison, yeah, I mean, you could be right, yeah.
I do think he has a very, almost like a good chance to comp into the final 3 from this point. Like, even like has a good chance of winning at 6 and 5, and then I think it's been mentioned that he's like the person tending the fire, all the time. So he has like not only the final immunity challenge, but the safety net of the fire challenge. And I wonder if that's what happens, and that's also why they're kind of like showing his negative aspects as to why he loses. Just trying to like predict the edit. But yeah, no, Ben, you're right. She is incredibly tunnel visioned here, in a way that like she's just on the wrong person. She just thinks Jonathan is the threat, and she's completely blind to Omar actually being the real threat. And like she, at this point, she is the only other person I could see potentially winning, just because she's coming on in terms of being like a personality that's like focused on, and she got like her football player thing in this episode. I just don't think maybe Marianne pulls a move, but I think like at this point Mike's probably like drawing dead as he's made too many strategic errors. I think Romeo's so dead, like has been out of the running since the merge boot, unfortunately, or the fake merge boot. And then Marianne, maybe she can pull a move, but I honestly like think Omar has Jonathan and Mike, who are the only two people who potentially would benefit from going in. I mean Lindsay too, but I think Lindsay and Omar are tight. I don't see Jonathan flipping on Omar. If Omar gives Mike his idol back, I don't see Mike flipping on Omar. I just don't see how Omar doesn't get to the end unless some like real shitty, oh, this person's safe at the final 6, this person's safe, and now Omar's the only like one of two people who can get voted for, and something happens there.
I think to you and Ben's point too, of like the Xander comparison, is that it is very similar. Where other than Leanna last season, where other than Lindsay this season, it really does seem like that everybody else is kind of focusing away from him, which is an issue for him.
Yeah. She also got tunnel vision on Xander for no benefit to her game.
For the sake of being a contrarian, I stick to my guns.
Yeah.
We like.
No, okay. Hey, you might be right.
Diversity on this podcast.
Now you might be right. I mean, like who really knows? I always say like I did not see Erica coming at all. Yeah. So we're a new era of Survivor.
So at this stage of last season, I know we're a little crunched for time. I guess who would you say would be more impressive this same exact stage last season, Erica or Marianne?
It's really tough because they like did not show us anything Erica was doing pre-merge, like other than she was outside of her alliance. Like at least Marianne is finding idols. She's very funny. She's like, a very like big personality where like, and nothing wrong with it, but Erica was seemingly not a huge personality in the game, whereas Marianne is at least like, there are some people I guarantee who were watching the end of last season and were like, wait, who's Erica near like the end of the season? Well, I don't think anyone's like that with Marianne, but Erica was playing a really good game. We just weren't shown what she was doing.
I'll say that I think that what Erica did in the end game of last season was probably more impressive to me than what Marianne would have to do, just because I don't really think she had anything going for her other than like Heather as her number 2. And she was able to pull out kind of, move after move from 6 to 4. In like ways that she really didn't at least seem like she had the agency to do, in terms of like Ricard, Danny, and then like getting Xander to take her. Whereas with Marianne, I think that she has tools. She has a tool in Romeo who has nobody at this point, and who basically has to do what Marianne says if he wants even like a sliver of a hope of winning the game. And she has an idol, and she has an extra vote, and she has a pretty clear path in terms of what she needs to do strategically, which is to pull in Jonathan to take out Omar, and then to try to ride that to a 3. So I think it's just I would be less impressed if for Marianne to do it because I think the the path is more illuminated for her.
Mm.
Whereas with Erica, it was kind of like keeping a lot of balls in the air. So
For me it's Marianne, but you raised some good points too because Erica's final 2 runs with on the final the final 5 days that they had was impressive, and the things that she helped orchestrate because she was at one point on the bottom. Where I wouldn't say Marianne's on the bottom, so I'm still gonna go with Marianne. I think would be a more satisfying winner to me. Which my overall point is that is a tribute to this season compared to the last. I keep saying I won't do that. Is that like a person who's probably like 4th or 5th who I think is gonna win? Just strictly talking now, would be more satisfying for me winning last season. That's the only point I have there. But you make some good points there. Or what Erica did in the last year was impressive.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think we're getting our second straight Canadian winner, coming in hot, and now that they can be on Survivor, and I'm impressed.
yeah, that's true. Omar and Marianne both are Canadian. Freya also it's the 3rd Canadian in the season.
Oh, I don't think I realized Omar was Canadian. Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're both Omar and Marianne, I think, are from the.
Yeah, we used to only get them on BB Can, and obviously that worked out really well. So I think it's good that they opened up to Canada for Survivor, rather than making their own version of Survivor.
Right. And I will say I think that I probably was higher on Erica from last season, at least from the final 5. I think for me, Erica was the most the best winner, I guess, of those 5 from a storytelling and game perspective. And I think that's more just to do with the fact that a lot of the people in that end game were either under-edited or edited to look really bad and to look really uncompelling as winners. In terms of both Danny and Heather might have been good winners with better edits, and Deshaun and Xander were basically trashed in the edit for the latter half of the season to a point where I would have been very upset for either of them to win. Similar to how I think that Romeo and Jonathan to me would be not super great winners because they've just been kind of edited super poorly. And Mike also is very much on that line for me for the last few weeks of he would be a good winner from a character perspective, but pretty much the last 3 weeks have just been oh, what is Mike doing wrong strategically this week?
Right.
So yeah, for me, I think it's Omar and then Gap, Marianne, Lindsay, Gap, Mike, Big Gap, Jonathan Romeo.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have much else to add for this episode. I don't know about you guys.
No, it's like I said, I expect fireworks next week just based on what we have left. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, a lot of games still left to be played.
Yep.
All right, you guys want to shout out your social media? You can wrap this up.
Yeah, DJ Cleverlang, 2 B's. Follow me on there. That's all I want you to follow me on, other than follow Wicked Good Everything and podcasts everywhere and the YouTube channel. DJ Cleverlang. Yes, I'm trying not to swear as much, but
that's good. I am not trying not to swear as much. It just is what it is. You can follow me on Twitter at @theFakeBMar. That's BMARR. And you can see me almost every day, very frequently, on our Wicked Good Sports channel. Some point, I'm going to have to record about the Celtics losing a very heartbreaking game last night, but I was not ready to do that last night, so that's not up there yet.
Yep. Rip Jack. You can follow me on Twitter at Ben Sharon. Follow the main channel on Twitter at WG Everything, and then you can follow Wicked Good Everything on Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and then also the main YouTube channel. This podcast is on our secondary podcast channel on YouTube, which is Better Radio. Otherwise, you can find us at The Blindsiders on all major podcasting platforms. We will be back next week to dissect another episode of Survivor 42. There's only 2 weeks left in the season, which is crazy. We really kind of
It
got
really
through the
is.
season super fast, and then big time off before we get back in the fall for Survivor 43. So until next week, been the Blindsiders. See you then.